Okay, so I hope that nothing will go wrong. Okay, you'll see I'm working for OC Printing Systems. Working for OC Printing Systems, Bavaria, Germany, not North Dakota. Yeah, so Poing near Munich. I meant Munich, yeah. Okay, as you can see, I have a long years of experience. Well, I'm 62 next week, and sometimes I feel older than that. This is about me, and I think it's mainly without any interest. Okay, something about the environment I monitor. We, in Poing, are for OC Printing Systems. We are now 100% owned by Canon. From next year on, we are no longer OCE. We are a Canon production printing unit, fully integrated. And, well, I have a long experience with Nagios. I started with NetSaint. I had written a lot of plugins, and I have, I think, a not so small landscape. I monitor systems for us in Poing, for headquarters in Venlo, for Singapore, for Melbourne, for Timișoara in Romania. I'm running currently around 2,400 hosts in monitoring with on production 23,500 RAND services. Over 50% is on Windows. And, well, I had the problem, I had to monitor Windows events. Does anybody of you have a problem to monitor Windows events? You know what is it running inside the log file, from self-written programs, from standard shit? Well, at Venlo, our headquarters, asked me, well, we want to replace Microsoft's COM and we have to monitor events. Can you do it? Can you monitor it in the log file? I said, yeah, no problem. Well, there was a problem. First, I'm not the administrator of these systems. Second, they want to have installed so much stuff on their systems. And so I use very much SNMP, because SNMP is available on nearly every fucking system. It's old, it's shitty, but it works. Well, since Windows 2012, a lot of things formerly monitored by me with SNMP wasn't no longer possible. Microsoft reduced it and said, hey, take WMI. But that's something special. I have plugins for disk or so, which covers Windows, Linux, Solaris, a lot of other stuff, all with the same plugin. Okay, so Windows events. So I thought, okay, check Logfiles from Gerhard Lauser. It's a very fine plugin, but unfortunately, I can't distribute it. It's not because it needs per runtime environment. You can compile it in a way that you get a standalone Excel. But the problem was that I have to deploy different configurations, and that was not to handle. So I started with nsclient, log file monitoring. I spent weeks on that shit because there are mighty filters. And finally, my filters were working. But unfortunately, in case of a critical, I get a critical message, but a return code of 0. And 0, as you know it, means OK. I never found out what it was, but I thought, well, this can't be handled. I can't have filters for any event. And so I thought, oh, shit, there must be another way to monitor events. Especially if you're passing log files, you have to be aware for the time frame, so that you won't process the same event more than once. That was hard. You can use the feature of nsclient++ for log file monitoring, sending the event from nsclient directly when it happens. But this was more configuration for me. And especially, I have a standardized nsclient ini, and this is deployed to all locations. And so it wasn't my opinion to have different versions to deploy. We can't maintain it because there are too much systems with too much administrators. And believe me, not every administrator is money worth. So we have a real big bunch of idiots working as administrators. Yeah, especially we have a lot of only mouse clickers. Yeah, everything which is more than a click, it's like talking about Trump and intelligence, I think. Okay, so I found out we have SNMP enabled on all Windows systems, and I was very surprised. Windows is able to send SNMP traps. I said, great. I thought, great. Let's enable it. And this is how you will do it. You go just on the service and say, okay, service properties, and then you have that frame, that window on the right side. You have a traps card. And the only thing you have to do to enable it to send traps is you have to add your trap destinations. These are not my IP addresses, so don't try it. Unfortunately, the community name can't be changed. It's public, but, well, I don't care about it. I enabled it, and when I looked into the trap log, I saw, wow, I got a trap, but I don't know what it meant. It was sort of, nah, okay, forget it. Well, later I recognized it was only an authorization trap. It's called by Microsoft, and it's only like a heartbeat. Okay, so I had the Windows system sending traps. But the next thing is, how will I get my events as a trap? And that's easy. I looked into the in the net. I think it was weeks, and I found no information. Then I found EventWin. But first, let's have a look. An event is logged in a log file. And for example, and for my former screenshots, unfortunately, I can't have a live presentation because the VPN wasn't working correctly. Sessions were crashed. I tested it 1 hour ago, and so we are about to the screenshot. So I tested it with a wrong login. So from my system, my Linux system, I have access to a Windows testing machine, and I use FreeRDP. So I took my FreeRDP script and modified it with a wrong login. And you see you got an audit failure with an event ID of, here you see it, 4625. So I thought, well, without our production environment and the trap, they asked me, the events, they asked me, it's good for testing. So remember, 4625, and you see we have an audit failure. You can see it in your event log. And believe me, if someone will ask you to monitor events, you are first to look into this log to see what you will expect, what is coming on data. So pardon my bad English, but sometimes I'm missing words. If I miss sentences, please call a doctor, then it's caused by my age. Okay, so the great tool is EventWin. EventWin is part of the event handling system of Microsoft Windows and part of the SNMP package. At the end of the slides, and I think the slides will be available online later on, you will see some resources. These resources were hard to find, and the resources for SNMP are all under Win32 tree in the Microsoft documentation. but it's still actual. It's from the end of 2018. So this is working, but always Microsoft say, hey, better use WMI. Okay, you start EventWin and you will get this event to trap translator. Great, yeah? You know the event, I had 4625, for example. So how do I get the event in it? Well, I think it was a settings trap. And we got this one. And you see on the left event sources, the same as you see in the event log when you look at the log entries. So I looked for the right entry, and you see on the right side, is my mouse working? No. You see under security, we have the 4625. Okay. Okay, take this one. And at the top, you see the object identifier. Does everybody knows an object identifier in SNMP? Yeah, it's mainly like a telephone number. Yeah, continuum, galaxy, planet, and so on. And you see it's for 4625, and at the bottom you see the description. Beware, the description is a multi-line output. We will come to it later on. Especially, and that is interesting here, you can say, well, generate a trap if an event count reaches within a time interval. This is interesting, for example, for if you want to monitor a login attack or something like that by script. So you say, okay, if event count reaches, for example, 100 in 10 seconds, well, send me a trap. I have to do something. Perhaps to look for the guy doing it and go into my desk and get my gun. Or better, get a sword and cut his fingers. Well, from this time on, it was sending this trap to me. Great. But this trap doesn't say anything. So I thought, okay, I always use SNMPTT, SNMP Trap Translator, to process traps in a user-friendly way in Linux. And I looked for a MIB, a management information base. Fortunately, there is one, eventagent.mib. Unfortunately, you can't use it because it's too old. But event data, this is still valid. The object identifier is not valid, but the data is valid. So you can use the data as an orientation, what you will get, what you will have to process. Okay, so next was, I enabled on my test system log unknown traps, and that's what I got. You see at the end of the first line, the last number is the event ID. That's good to know. Then I had some values. I don't know how to process these values in SNMP Trap Translator. Absolutely no. And I have some, I think it's entity values. And if you look at these entity values, you will see, hey, I have seen it before. We have seen it when we looked on the Windows machine at the log entry. Same data. But there's a carriage return, and that's the problem. I mentioned multi-line output. And multi-line output means in Windows, as you know, carriage return line feed. Line feed is dropped by default, so we have a carriage return we have to handle. That means also you can't forget using simple shell scripts. Or you handle it in your shell script to replace a carriage return by a new line or something like that. Well, I took a Perl script. And then I had the next. I had a first filter, a first entry in my configuration file. You'll see, I named it login denied and a format foo, or foo, no, foo. And $. That means give me all the variables. And you see here, with the object identifier, on the right side you see 46225, it's the right event. And then you see all the data which is coming out of this stuff. So here, with this step, you can verify, do I get all the data which is sent to me? This is important because later on, we break it down in several variables to handle. And here you can check, have I got all or all values I want? It's a little bit hard to read, but, well, I think most of us are paid by time, not by work. Okay, so this is clear, yeah? So we are now having a Windows server sending a trap for a specified event. And you can do it for every event. Well, then I took the next step. If somebody is wondered why I do it as root, well, on this test machine I have only root. I have no local accounts. But it's a test machine, and therefore it's no problem. And all my working directories are named duck, or working scripts are duck. Why? Well, my name is Fürstenau. And when I had my first job in IT, for the non-English speakers, Fürst is like a duke or lord or so. And so I was asked, hey, which account do you want to have? And I said, give me a duke. And this guy made a duck from it. Okay, so in that time, I know on every system, working directories or some scrap ORs are always from DuckTales. It's Duck or Daisy or Donald, and I know I can remove it. So I had a simple shell script, and I only took the first 9 variables because I'm lazy. And you know from shell scripting, 9 variables can be handed over without any problem. And so I wrote this little stupid bash script on the right side. I only wanted to test, is it working? And this was the result. Fine. On first line, I had the message and an unknown, we have seen it. This is not my server name, but I had to replace it when I did the screenshot. And some other stuff. And we have seen all this stuff in the event log. Okay? This was successful. And then I did the next. If anybody want to have this script, it's a Perl script, from me, he can have it, but it's currently only to log the events, to show me which data is in it. At the end of last week, I was at that point, just I had just enough time to do the slides for today, and I was very lucky that it was working. So, by the way, sdesk means system start description and edesk end description. By the way, commands never would increase runtime, but they may be helpful. Well, and that was the result I got. You see, nearly every entry, the full log was longer than a PowerPoint slide made space for me. And well, here I have all the lines. I replaced the carriage return with the \n in the Perl program. And you see, I have a text event system, you see the server event text, blah, blah, blah. But this text is a multi-line, and you see here the event type and the event user ID. Well, I tried it with an unknown user ID. If I would have used a user ID valid with the wrong password, at this point, I have the user ID and text, the same text here. And this is the step I'm currently working on. The next step is to enhance this script with modular filters because maybe not for standard Windows systems. So this message part is nearly fixed on every Windows system. So if you have the event ID, you don't need the text. But if you have a development department, and this development department will log in own logs, will produce own events, maybe the important part you need for an error message is within the text. So the main problem I have now is to enhance this script with modular filters to filter that part. Every other thing can be handled with command line switches. Some years ago, I had written a mail processing system to process email-based alerts. Very hard. Has anyone ever tried it to process emails as alert? Well, you stumble on things like, well, this mail isn't a text mail. It's HTML. Okay, we can handle it. Unfortunately, it's base 64 encoded. Oh, shit. And it hasn't a fixed format. Therefore, I had a Perl module where I could add shell scripts or Java programs. Said Java programs. Someone believes in it. I don't know why, but someone believes in God. I do not. Or shell scripts or whatever. It's an open interface, and I will recycle it for this script so that in the very next time I will post it on GitHub or on Icinga or on request by email if I forget like many times to post it, or I do not have the time to post it. And then we will have a system to easily process Windows events. Well, I think it was a thumb up, yeah? I haven't seen it. It's so shiny here. Yeah. Well, I thought faster. I spoke faster than in my test. I tested this presentation with a watch for the time. Okay. As I mentioned, the next will be WinTrap to monitor. With filters for the variables, which should handle most events only by passing command line. And believe me, maybe the one or the other will know me. I'm the author of Check VMware ASX and a lot of other plugins, and I know what I'm doing when I say I can do it. And I will do it because I need it. Yeah. I had planned to have a live presentation of this, but unfortunately the OpenVPN will not work. It will hang after a few seconds or a few minutes. Here we have some resources. These resources were hard to find. You see, the last resource is a documentation from Commvault. Commvault is a backup system. But this is very good to show how you have to enable traps on your system. We monitor all our Commvault backups and so on with SNMPTT and traps. Well, I was faster than planned. I spoke faster than planned. So there is more spare time yet to get prepared for drinks. Are there any questions? If there's any thumb rising up, I won't see it because it's so shiny here.
There's one.
There's one. Where's one? There's one.
Hello.
Hi.
You were talking about SNMP traps sending to the monitoring system.
Yep.
If you have high loads, many traps coming in, do you have problems of dropping traps? You don't
Definitely not. I had the first presentation I had here years ago was about trap handling with SNMPTT. And at that time, I had the problem that our Dutch colleagues moved all of their SAP systems to us, and they tried to replace their job scheduler. Unfortunately, there was no money for the job scheduler they decided to use, and so they stayed with IPX, but unfortunately they had kicked off the operators monitoring that thing manually. And so a Dutch colleague came to me and said, hey, you told me you can process traps, I can send you traps. Well, this was my first presentation here, and I had monitored 1,600 SAP jobs, and I never ran into problems. I have a lot of systems sending me traps I won't process. These traps are dropped by default, so all our NetApp systems are sending traps. But we hadn't had the time, the NetApp admin and me, to see what we want to process. So all these traps are coming in, but no problem. Currently, I'm running an old Nagios 3.something, latest release with some mod Yemen workers, on two Fujitsu Siemens RX300 S6. Well, I improved it in a heavy way because I have a lot of memory I don't use, and so all the files used from the system, which were gone if you shut the system down, the monitor down, are on NTempFS. So only memory operations. I have no performance problems. I have no performance problems with a lot of traps, and I think several thousand a day I won't process. The only problem is that the WAR file system has to be big enough to keep the damned SNMP trap daemon logs. The SNMPTT logs are no problem because the unknown log is only enabled when I do some testing, and this is normally set to 0 length by me if it's too long, because I don't need all this stuff coming in, and that's a lot. During testing this, I had it enabled, and well, within 2 hours of testing, I had around 40,000 lines of log. But the only problem is, if you don't care, if you have the unknown log enabled permanently, maybe your WAR file system will get full. But that's SNMPTT is a very lightweight. SNMP traps are very lightweight. So it is SNMP. The simple doesn't mean simple to use. It means simple from the structure. And so you got a simple data. And it's not a heavy payload if you receive a lot of traps. You can receive hundreds of traps per minute without harming your system. This should not be an issue of modern hardware, but that's general. Don't use, according to my opinion, virtual systems. My boss says always, hey, I want to buy no hardware. Use for new systems virtual hardware. And I say, okay, on VMware? Yes, on VMware. And I told him, well, you remember last time I had a worker for our corporate network for QA, and this was only one worker, and I crashed the VMware systems. Yeah, but new hardware is faster. And I told him, well, you remember 2 weeks ago we had no new hardware, and I kicked off the brakes of my worker, and I crashed the new VMware system. Yeah, but you should do it with VMware. Okay, but the same boss told me, Martin, you should use Excel as a database. And so after this, I looked for a thick piece of wood and go to a chamber and beat it just before my head, again and again. But he's my boss, okay? And I can kill him. So I have to live with it. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? No. Well, it was faster. Oh yeah, I can see him. Yeah.
Okay, then a big applause.
Thanks a lot.